Okay, so for our myth, we chose the myth of Xiuhtecuhtli, which is the Aztec god of fire, day, and heat.
Okay, so this deity is often depicted as a young man, but often he is considered interchangeable with another deity, which name you can see on the first bullet point of the slide. He is referred to as old god and is often depicted as an elderly man because he is the god of wisdom and fire. There's also another deity, which you can see on the second bullet point, is his female counterpart. And it is believed whenever they are in association with each other, they create the divine creator, which its name is on the third bullet point. Like said on the first slide, he is the deity of fire, day, and heat. It is believed that during the cold, he brings warmth, during the night, he brings light, and during famine, he brings food. Um, the myth goes that he rose from the underworld straight through earth to the heavens on a pillar of fire. And because of that, that pillar is supposedly burning to this day. And if it were ever to burn out, the whole universe would collapse because that pillar is holding the whole universe together. Because this pillar goes from the underworld to the heavens, it is also believed that he also helps souls into the afterlife. Turquoise and fire is associated with him. And because of that, not many civilians wear turquoise. It's mainly the priests who do. And there are often midsummer and midwinter festivals in his honor. And every 52 years, once the Aztec calendar ends, there's a celebration called the calendar round, where it's not just for him, but all the gods, but focusing on him. Fires are put out and then relit, and then also sacrifices are made in his honor.
So Aztec culture as a whole is pretty unique. And it really began when a group of people called the Mexica migrated from the northern parts of Mexico to where modern day Mexico City is, where they founded the city of Tenochtitlan, which is on an island in a lake. This occurred in 1325. And the Aztec Empire that we hear about wasn't really started until 1428, when 3 city-states, including Tenochtitlan, joined together to break free of an oppressive city-state run by the Tepanec people. And once in 1428, when this occurred, that's when the empire officially was founded. And that's when a lot of Aztec culture really began, because with their regional dominance, they're able to spread their culture around most of Mesoamerica. And a lot of their culture was built on a lot of past civilizations like the Olmec, Maya, Zapotec, and most importantly, the Toltec. And so one of the most interesting parts of Aztec culture is they have a very intricate caste system, and with 2 different ranks, pretty much. So we had the nobles, which were any descendant of Xiuhtecuhtli, which was the first Aztec king, who fathered kids with 20 different women. And these descendants had access to better education, finer clothes, and had the ability to serve in government. Next were the commoners. So many were farmers and or slaves. And slaves weren't the typical kind of slaves you see in the history books. These kind of slaves were not hereditary, so if you were born of a slave, you were not automatically a slave. And there were many ways for slaves to buy their own freedom. But if you were in economic difficulty, you can often sell yourself as a slave, which is how most slaves became slaves. And amongst the commoners, there are also craftsmen, merchants, and soldiers, who are all of the higher level of commoner, but still commoner. And soldiers who prove themselves in battle could also rise to the rank of noble in some cases. Other unique parts of their culture is their art, which often showcase religion, like the picture to the right. Entertainment, which they had many different games, including one kind of ball game that was so important that most places that they settled, the court for that game was the first thing put up. And they also had a pretty rich religion that was polytheistic and often included human sacrifice. And a lot of these gods were influenced from the past. And finally, they placed a very large emphasis on education, with both genders being educated and males receiving military training from when they began.
Okay, so the cultural impact that this deity had on the Aztecs, they had a lot of ceremonies that took place in August and at the cold of January, and this was every 52 years. Without these ceremonies, the Aztecs believed that the sun would not continue to rise. And in the picture here, it shows the end of the calendar cycle and the new fire ceremony. Many young men also and warriors also identified with this god.
So as it's been referenced in the presentation before, there were two ceremonies that were in honor of this deity, and one of the main ones is the new fire ceremony, which has been referenced to also as the calendar cycle ceremony. This is like one of the main ones. When this ceremony happens, all the lights and fire that are in the city are put out so that they can renew the fire. And they do this by sacrificing a person by cutting out their heart and emptying the chest cavity. After the chest cavity is emptied, a fire would be lit inside. And if the fire would take to the body, then they would reuse this light to relight all the fires that were put out in the city. But if the fire did not take, this would be a sign that terrible monsters and bad fortune are coming upon the people. So I think there's a lot to learn from the god. The myth shows us that we have to take care of fire so that it takes care of us. If they didn't do these ceremonies and they didn't do them properly, then they felt that their civilization would come to an end, and the fire would take over. It also shows us that fire provides a lot of opportunities for growth in the civilization. In other ways, it allowed them to grow larger. And it also shows that fire is a natural part of the universe, and they believe that it should be involved in all aspects of life and should be cherished in that way because it provides us with so much. And finally, fire is also meant to be a way to purify, transform, and regenerate the world, which I think is important for us to think about today because we've spent so long suppressing fire, but it is a beautiful thing, and it's a way that we can all take advantage of to regenerate the world.
There's our website. And thanks all for watching.